Hello. This is the last video on fixing a Mitsumi brand white polyethylene cracked head video. I started off the first one with how to disassemble the assembly so that you could get to the cracked head, and then I had a video on how to glue it. And then finally, I'm going to show you how to put it together. So, adjust the light on this thing. Okay. So, in the meantime, since I filmed the last video, I did do some things to this unit. Cleaned out the slider pot here for the record playback. You can see that bar thing there, that if you push in the button, it slides back and forth. So clean that out. Cleaned out the pots for the record level. Maybe it's better without this light on. That's better. So there's one here under the VU meters, and there's one there. Clean those out. The slide pot, as I mentioned. I actually replaced the foam behind the meters. You can see a little bit of the foam there. That was all rotted. That just makes sure the meters are snug up against the plate. And I just used a little rubber cement and some foam strips for that. I had a video about the counter with the cracked gear here. As you can see, I've tried to glue it together. It didn't really hold, but when I put it on, I super glued it onto the shaft, and I put a little bit of grease on there. And it turns very well, very smooth. You can see how the gear turns. So that's working for the most part. A little bit of a pause there where it's cracked, but it does continue to turn. I cleaned off the capstan here, removed the top piece here to get some lubrication underneath there. And so pretty busy with that. And so now I'm ready to put the head back into the frame. I did clean the head off with a little bit of metal polish prior to doing that. Cleaned up around here, cleaned the auto eject, which is basically this post that pushes out, comes back in. And so I will be putting the head back in, and as I mentioned to you before, when we disassembled this, the first part we disassembled was the components on this post here, which the circuit board is covering this. That has the C-clip, and it has basically these pieces that go onto it, minus the large spring. And the only thing that goes on this post here is the spring that I just pointed out, plus the head mount. So now to reassemble it, you do it in reverse. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this thing back on to the tripod so I can film doing this. So the head goes into this white plastic receptacle, and in the back of the receptacle you'll see some, I'm not sure how blurry this thing is, you'll see some little tabs on the back of the head frame that the head pushes up. It's important that this head gets pressed all the way to the back into the frame and hits the back of the tabs there, and then is secured down by the screw. And then I put a bead of super glue along the bottom here, just along the edge when the head's in there, to keep it stable, not on the frame but on the edge of it. So let's mount this back up. Okay, get this wire out of the way. Okay, so this should be a pretty good shot for you to see the assembly part. So the first thing I'm going to do is put the head back in. So this piece here, make sure that you're in the frame here. Okay. So this piece here I had to pull back out, this copper grounding strip, And as you can see here, there is a little dot here, and then there's a dot underneath on the frame, which is where the screw presses in. Now when you tighten the screw, it's very important that you don't over tighten it to put too much pressure on this, which can cause this to crack. Just enough to touch it and to keep it in place. So let's put this back in. And what I also had to do was kind of take an X-Acto blade and cut out some of the glue that got inside here, because when I was trying to push it back in, it wasn't going all the way to the back. So you may need a blade such as this to cut excess glue so that you get a clear path. So here we put this under here, and then we take the head and you very carefully line this up on the top part of the head and the bottom, and that metal tab is on this side, so you make sure you put the head in right. Screw was loose and it was very difficult. There was a lot of lock washer underneath there that made it difficult to retract the screw, but I did get it up. So I'm trying to push this in. As you can see, I'm pushing the head in very carefully, and the head is stuck here. Hold on a minute. So the head is back on against the tabs, which are here. There's a tab here, and a tab here, and a tab on the bottom. So the head is now fully seated, and I'm going to now tighten the screw on top very carefully and very slowly. Do not turn too fast. Get that metal tab there and just start turning this down slowly. And you want to also hold it so that it doesn't crack. And you'll see the tip of the screw going down until it touches the metal tab on top. Make sure this is over here. And you'll start to feel a little bit of resistance. So I'm turning it, keeping an eye on how far down it is. It's just about touching. Now I'm starting to feel it stop. So that's about as far as I want to go. I don't want to go any further to risk breaking it. Just maybe a tad more. You don't want to put too much pressure, just turn it a little bit. So that's as far as I'm going to go down on this. And it is touching the screw at the top, so that you've reached your limit. Now I'm going to take some super glue. I'm just going to run a tiny little bead, and I'm not going to put the super glue tip right on the top. I'm just going to take a toothpick and put it on there and then run it based on that. So take a little super glue, put this over here, make sure you can see all this good. I have to check the view, and squirt out a little dab of super glue. There. So as you can see, I have a tiny little bead here. And I'm just going to run this along the bottom. Right there. Right along the bottom. Just a little bead across the bottom. You don't want to put it underneath there, just on the edge. So that'll definitely make sure. Now you want to make sure, and you can see the head is perfectly perpendicular. See? Level to the frame. And it's fully seated against the back. It's that tab, this tab, and the bottom tab. You can see this tab a little easier. See? It's fully seated. 1, 2, 3. So, that said, we're good to go in putting the assembly together now. Glue back together, top back on. Now, see how the battery's doing. Good. Alright, so what you're going to need is some lubricant. I use this white lithium grease. While you're putting the assembly back, and you want to put some good amount of lubricant, not too much, but on the posts and on the components as you put them back in. So before I do that, I want to make sure that you see the spring assembly here. So you'll notice that the spring again has a longer base. This goes down, this part goes down, the longer piece, and actually, sorry, the spring, the upper base, the longer piece goes up, and the shorter piece goes down. So that's the order it goes down. Put the shorter side down, and when you put it over the post, you'll see the post here. Get the head out of the way. Let's put this out of the way. The post, the spring hole at the base needs to be perfectly centered over that post. Cannot have it off to the side or else it won't compress. And there's a bit of a rise here, so make sure that the spring base fits exactly around the base of that. And when you put the spring on, the upper part, okay, here will fit and push on this edge. So here's the screw for adjusting the height. You want this spring piece here, the end of the spring, to touch just above the screw thread. Thank you. Like right on the white part. Just above there. It has to go down because the spring, the base is, the mount is going to push down, and you don't want it to hit that. You want it to hit just above there on the white part. So, put my phone away. Annoying calls. So let's put some grease on here first. So as you can see, I'm putting some grease on the post. And I'm going to put a little bit inside the head post here. So you'll see me put some here, right around there. Okay. So this should fit just like this. Just like that. So I'm going to put the head down, and then this side of the spring touches up on the inner side of this screw over there, the shorter side. And you'll see here, see how I have the screw, the spring centered around the base of the post? Now I'm going to put this on. Now, while you're doing this, it's a good idea to have all your pieces ready to put on, because you're going to have to be holding this thing down, compressing the springs while you're putting these pieces together. So I'm also going to put a little bit of lubricant on the rear post. You'll see here, I'm putting some lubricant grease on the rear post, like that. And it goes back on this rear post. Okay, so now I'm going to put the head on, and while I'm lowering the head, make sure, first of all, none of the wires are broken. You don't want to have that. So you take the long piece of the head and you push this down. You push the post down, the frame, and while it's going down, you have to push the spring over to go underneath this. And it's a little tricky to do. I'm going to take a smaller needle nose to do that. Some wires are in the way. There. So, I've got the long side of the spring up against the height adjustment screw just above it, and sorry I can't show you all of this, but and the spring is centered underneath. Maybe I can do this. Let me try and adjust this. So that's, I'm going to get this light out of the way. You'll see the thread here. This is pretty dark here. This is the base of the head of the frame, and the spring is underneath it. Let's see if I can do it that way. You'll see how it's there. Okay. Alright. Apologize for not focusing very well, but I haven't used this camera in a while. Let's try and get this better. Focus this a little better. Brain wants to tip forward, which I don't think it's going to do. But, okay. Alright, anyway. So, I have the spring, the short end, under this, against this screw, and the long end is under the height adjustment screw. And you'll see the head tends to turn counterclockwise a bit, which is fine. That's how it's supposed to. And you want to try and push the head assembly up and down a few times to make sure it goes all the way down, and that the longer spring is pushed off to the side so it's not blocking the flow down. So as you see that I pushed it and it popped up a little bit, which is fine. You don't want it to block the descent of the spring, and I'm going to make sure the spring is centered underneath as well. Good. Alright, so that done, move the wires out of the way a little bit. Now we're going to work on the rear part. And again, like I said, you have to hold things down while you're doing this, so it's kind of a pain. But so this part, the next piece that goes on, is this little white tab. And again, the long part goes through the back through this T section, and the short part pushes down. This tab pushes on this, the end of the frame. So let me get a little bit of grease, which is now way over here. And I'm going to put a little bit of grease onto the inside of this bracket. And then I'm going to put some up here onto these little teeth. Now the teeth, as I mentioned again, match with the ridges on the head, on the rotating disc, and they kind of go up and down. So those two will have to mate at one point, and you want to put some good amount of grease on that as well. Let me grab another swab here. Squirt out some grease. Okay. And proceed to do that. Put a little bit of grease on here. Okay. And inside the edge of this T-frame, you want to grease the edges of this so that it slides up and down smoothly. And again, you've got to put it in turned at an angle, see, in the T, and then turn it so it goes down into the slot. And that's pretty much all that's involved with that. Then you want to grease the bottom part of this gear, which is this. Get the crap off of there. Put some grease on the underside, especially this part, which is the raised track that causes the head to go up and down the inclined hills and valleys. Put a nice amount of grease on that. Okay. And then you put that on top of this. And again, you have to slide the ratchet so that it can get past that and sink down in there. Okay, so you can see that it goes up and down now, which is what it's supposed to do. And this is going to be out in the way for a little bit. So if I look at my diagram here, the next thing that goes up is this spring here. And that goes on top of the ratchet post here. So you want to get this to go down. Okay, and you put this next piece, the spring, on top of that. And before I do that, you'll notice that this contact, this rotating contact disc, has a flat side and a notch. And those line up with the flat side and the notch on the cogwheel there. So let's put the spring on. And again, you always have to keep holding this down. And then you put the circuit board piece on top. Okay, this gets a little tricky. So now you've got everything there and you're holding everything down, and now you got to get the circuit board on, and you do that by holding this down and sliding the circuit board underneath the notch in the metal bracket behind it, like so. And while you're holding it down, now you press this down. So you've got everything now together. You see it should be able to go up and down like that. Okay. Then you're into the final stage where you take the washer, okay, and you put that on top, and you take the C-clip. And C-clips are always tricky. You never know if they can fly. Be very careful. They're a loaded spring essentially. And you put the C-clip on here, and you find the notch in the side of the post, like there, and then you take your needle nose plier and you squeeze it like this. There. And that is it. You've got everything together. You want to exercise it. Make sure it goes up and down easily. A little bit of adjusting if you have to. And so if I push this now to the side, it should engage, turn the notch, and you'll see that it goes around, and I'm trying to do this without hitting a camera, and you'll see it go down. And you push it again. And you just got to make sure that it turns around easily. And you can see that based on this, it's going up and down. Make sure this thing is on right. Right. And it raises and lowers it. So this has to go down. So what happens is this magnet here pulls this down, catches onto the ratchet here, and while it's pushed down, it actually turns and pushes that over a notch. Then it pops up. Next one comes around, magnet pulls it down, engages this. Bottom one pushes over the head, and then the head goes up and down. So you can do it like this, and so it goes up to program 1, program 2, program 3, and program 4, and then you'll see it pop up to go to program 1 again, just like that. So that's it. And the biggest thing is waiting for the glue to dry. It takes a while. You gotta just double check, make sure nothing's blocking or hitting anything. And I'll see if I can maybe give you a shot of the side. It's not too blurry. It's always tricky to do these while you're filming. Got grease on my fingers, I don't want to get it on my camera. So there it is. The underside, the head, this tripod out of the way. You know, going up and down like that. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Well, I hope that was helpful. I apologize if there's some blurriness in here. Like I said, I haven't used this camera in a while. I don't know if there's something that the autofocus is going off, but hopefully this will help you guys. Alright, and appreciate your time. Thank you.